Secularly referred to as vibes, wills, energies, or even ideologies, spirits are highly complex and autonomous psychological entities. Each one possesses an anti-spirit with which a dance-like war is waged using the possessed as weaponry. Some of the highest spirits verge on godhood and lay at the root of reality's most archetypal patterns. There is a dance-like war being waged between spirits. Each spirit has an anti-spirit, just like how each ism or ideology has its antithesis. But there is a sort of conservation of psyche. As long as there is Democrats, there will be Republicans, basically. These ideologies, these spirits are so desperate to build up their culture, and possess as many as possible, so that way they'll have something to fight against their anti-spirit. But for the most part, these spirits don't realize that each one of them is an inextricable, it's bound to their antithesis. So while they keep building themselves up, they're building up the other one too, and vice versa, because they're in synchronicity. They're one being. It's almost like a split body syndrome. Anyways, pharmaceuticals each possess a respective spirit as well, where the user or addict is the possessed. All individuals also possess a personal spirit or a soul. Foreign souls have the capacity to possess just as well as spirits through power or through introjection. Fantasy characters, movie characters, book characters are also spirits or spiritual beings. All these things are spirits. Some are more pervasive than others. Yeah, nationality, gender, religion, political are some like the most common that you'll see. Also like emotional. Let's see. A spirit, unlike a soul, can only be directly interacted with through the mind. Well, you can interact with them physically, but you can only get at a piece of them. I guess it's possible. No, there are plenty of cases. Like for instance, in a marriage or a family, you can round up the whole spirit in one room. But even then, the same way that you can kind of see someone in someone else, how we rub off on each other, we possess people in that sense. And so I don't know, it's almost like this, when you get into the spiritual domain, things are very fluid and spectral. Things aren't as concrete. This is the realm of mystery. Let's see, dreams and active imagination as well as magic are some of the best conduits for engaging with spiritual forces. Fear is another big spirit. Sadness, anger, these are all pretty prolific emotional spirits. So yeah, do your best to limit your identifications outside your name. God made you to be you. Let's not play. Let's not buy in to the deceit, to the lie, to being this or that. Let's work through this. So these spirits find body through the communion of human beings. God, for instance, the spirit finds incarnation through true communion in love between people. But there are many other different kinds of spirits. You can kind of think of the spirits as disembodied, right? They only exist insofar as they have body and symbols that exist in the world, but you can kind of abstract out of all of their particular manifestations, this in particular and unincarnate will. So these spirits are essentially just raw wills. They are archetypes, they are drives, and there's a whole bunch of different levels to this too. They exist at any level of communion. Even two people just in a room together. Those two people create in themselves or have a spirit that binds them. Any relationship is bound by a spirit. If there's a family, that family all shares and participates in the life of one spirit that defines the family. In a marriage between two people, those people become joined in one body by sharing a spirit. Political parties are probably the prime example of this. Yeah, just be yourself, dog. The self is the spirit of God. There's religious ones of these, for instance, Christianity. That's basically the archon, right? It's the right, the conservatives, the Republicans, all of these things. You see how they're all bound and they kind of form one body. There's a spirit that presides over that, a principality that governs this body. And then you have the leftists, which is essentially the spirit of Lucifer. I think I've made a pretty strong case for that at this point. Any category, you can look at it as a spirit, right? There's a spirit of the pseudo-intellectual. There's a spirit of the Muslim. There's even, dare I say, there are ethnic spirits. Like white people have this spirit that presides over them and that binds them together. And there's a manner in which you can recognize like white culture. And you can see that culture, that overarching principle, find embodiment in particular white people. This is why there are some black people that are white, as you will hear get thrown around, like Kanye. Yeah, and more about like the celebrities and these internet characters embodying the Olympians. Idolatry. These celebrities are considered idols, right? Yeah, and these idols on their like social media accounts or whatever, they will have followers, right? So they each have like a cult, just like the Olympians or the Egyptian gods. It's all about attention. These spirits, they thrive off of attention. There are spirits of drugs too. We all know what a pothead is like. We know that weed has a certain character to it, and this spirit possesses people. And there are people in this world whose entire personality has been sold out to being a pothead, to weed, or that has been sold out to fentanyl. There's a trillion, I don't even know how many like fentanyl addicts there are in this world. They are all the exact same. Not because that's who they are, but because they all have the same spirit, the same demon or force, whatever, daemon, if you want, is presiding over them and possessing all of them. Just see past the multiplicity and look into the unity. And you can see that there are these forces, these spirits at every level, right? Like there's a certain human nature. There's the spirit of humanity. And that is how you can recognize any particular thing as a human. Sometimes it's really freaky because you will be able to see humanity in like a dog or a stone. There's something special going on with humanity. But the spirit of aggression, there are emotional spirits. It comes back to attention and like recognition too. Like the fact that you can recognize it, like these spirits are patterns. It's basic pattern recognition. And if you're really paying attention, you should be able to see at this point that these patterns have a life of their own. It's like aggression, or sexuality, hunger, like all of these things are baked into humanity, and they're like subsets. This is what I mean by that these things exist at every level. Like it's this massive paternal hierarchy where all these patterns feed into other ones and are subsets, and it goes all the way up to the top. And that's the pattern of reality at the very top. Pattern is Latin for father, by the way. Masculinity and femininity. And this goes beyond male and female too. There is the spirit of the male and female, but those are a little more based and kind of boring to talk about. Masculinity and femininity, though, are very interesting because you can see masculinity in females at times and vice versa. Yeah, the political spirits, ideologies, isms. All isms are spirits. Communism, atheism, whatever ism, all isms, they're all spirits. That like what makes something a spirit demonic is when it like serves itself. Like a lot of these spirits exist and possess people to gain more attention on themselves, to further their own ends. What makes something like an angel is when there's a spirit that isn't doing it for itself, but it's taking people up and pointing towards something higher. Communism, at its essence, and etymologically speaking, it's not that bad. It's not even necessarily like anti-religious or anything. In fact, Christianity and the liturgy has communist elements to it, all right? It's called communion. They're etymologically linked. Now, the liturgy in Christianity is not communist. Communist is way too small. It can't account for all of it. But there is elements, just like how there's an element in each one of us that is communist. Otherwise, there would be no communal impulse. Nationalism is another good example. These things are cultures, right? That in the same way that there's a culture of bacteria, like the human beings form cultures, these groups, these bodies that are distributed across multiple people. There's a whole bunch. Yeah, and then there's a religious spirit too. There's a spirit that resides over every religion as well. That's why for the most part, you can tell someone's Muslim without them having to tell you, because you have pattern recognition, because you can see past the person into something beyond them, which possesses them, which they participate in. These spirits, they are identities. This is my closing note. Identify yourself as yourself. And don't be anti-ism either, because that's an ism. It's cool to have your isms, but you need to possess them. It can't be the other way around. And the way that you do that is by stating your name and saying that you are who you are. All right. Peace out.